Hey, today I'm talking about 3 Korean movies from the early to mid 2000s. And the names of those 3 movies are Joint Security Area, Memories of Murder, and A Bittersweet Life. First up is Joint Security Area, or JSA for short. This movie kind of starts off as like a mystery drama. So it takes place at the DMZ, or apparently also called the Joint Security Area. The setup is that a South Korean soldier somehow found himself on the North Korean side. Then he killed 2 soldiers and wounded another one when he also got wounded in the process, and then he escaped back. So now some UN officials from neutral countries of Switzerland and Sweden have come over to investigate to figure out what actually happened, because the official report is kind of iffy. Now, I'm gonna kind of spoil some of the mystery because I think that's fine, and I think it would have helped me better understand this movie going into it, just because I was a bit lost in the beginning. Now, that could have been more of a me thing, that I just wasn't fully grasping it and it was my own fault, but the framing device of the mystery, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. Like, I do get what they were going for, and I do think it worked to an extent, but I was so lost for such a long time that I just kind of wish they would have done it a little differently, because a good portion of the movie is a flashback to see what actually happened and what was going on. And what that was more just a bromance, and it was great. Like, so much of this movie is just about a bunch of guys hanging out, being silly together. But it's bittersweet because you know this ends in tragedy. Like, some combination of these guys are gonna die, and we don't know how, we know when. And so it's just building to that moment, and it's so sad because like, you're loving them just broing out together, but it's like at some point some of these guys are gonna die, and I don't like that. Yeah, I really like this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it. It's really good. Yeah. Next up is Memories of Murder. This is a 2003 movie based on a real-life story from the late 80s, where a guy went around murdering and raping women in a very peculiar way. And the mystery went unsolved. Even through the filming of this movie, it actually got solved in 2019. Going into this, I didn't know this was based on a true story, so that kind of threw me a little bit, but I kind of figured it was just based on some context clues. The movie follows the investigators. There's kind of the more local country bumpkins, and then one like really good cop from the big city who comes in to help. Now, the story is really good, the style's really good, the acting's really good. This movie has a lot going for it that I really thoroughly enjoyed. My main issue with the movie, my window's open if you can hear cars, is its casual use of police brutality / tortured confessions. Now, this is based on real life, and this shit actually did happen, so it does make sense to show us these things, but like, I don't know, I feel like I needed the movie to condemn these things more so. Like, they were, but they're also kind of treating it lightly, and I'm just like, I don't like this. I don't like seeing this on film. I just really despise seeing these things casually acted out. I totally get that these happens, but like, if it's so casual like this, it normalizes it, and then future police officers / current police officers will see this and be like, oh, see, it worked for them. Even though in this movie they do like showcase that like every time they do torture someone and get a false confession, that it's definitely a false confession, like they make a point of that, but like, it's still just not enough for me. But this movie's still really good, so I ended up putting in the quite liked, and honestly, I would recommend it if you think you can stomach the really gross police brutality / tortured confessions. Yeah. And lastly is A Bittersweet Life. This is a 2005 film, and the basic premise is we follow this gangster, good fella, enforcer guy who works for a mob boss figure, and he roughs up some competing gang members who were misbehaving in his hotel, and that causes problems, and then the boss leaves and puts him in charge of watching over his young girlfriend who he thinks is cheating on him, and gives him permission to kill his girlfriend and if the need rises. Yeah, the plot and story are just not great, and the acting as well. It's okay. It made it a little bit of a sludge to get through. That being said, this movie's style, and especially this movie's action, were incredible. Every single action scene was amazing. It was just like, when non-action's happening, it's down here, but when action happens, it's way, way up here. And it's great and amazing, and I loved that so much. The issue, though, comes that the action scenes were kind of few and far between, especially in the first half. There were only like a couple, and it's just like, it kind of lost me there because of the lack of action. It does pick up in the second half, but yeah. I did really like the ending, except for the last shot. I didn't completely understand that, but I did like what they did with the overall ending, save for the last shot, because again, I didn't understand that. So yeah, I ended up in this in the quite liked as well. I would actually recommend this one if you're in the mood for like some really good action, and if you don't mind sitting through some okay-ish plot. Like, the plot's not the worst, it's still interesting, it's just okay. So do with that as you will. Alright, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Joint Security Area, sitting at number 24 in the Really Like section. And then after that is Memories of Murder, sitting at number 43 in the Quite Liked. And then bringing up the rear, not too far behind, is A Bittersweet Life, sitting at number 55, also in the Quite Like section. And this is out of a total of 114 old movies so far this year.